Hello everyone, welcome back. I want to tell you guys what a privilege and honor it is to be here sharing my 50th birthday with you guys here today. So I was born February 10th, 1972, 50 years old today. I've had a very happy life. And I want to share my story a little bit with you guys, particularly for some of the younger guys that might be just starting out. Uh, Maybe you'll get a couple of things out of this that might help you out. So, uh, I first of all, let me say this: that you know, coming out of grammar school, going into high school, I was a decent student, but I wasn't like an A student. Okay, I wasn't like I was a B student. Let's put it that way. Okay, so I was not the best student, and in a way that was kind of an advantage to the extent that I knew that I could not afford to make mistakes in my life. Okay, because sometimes people take high intelligence for granted. Okay, I was a guy that said, "Hey, I got a decent amount of intelligence, right? But I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I have to do everything possible to give myself an advantage." Same thing applies to strength. I was a strong kid, right? But I wasn't the strongest one in the world, right? So I knew that I needed to go to the gym and work out. Okay? And basically, started working out when I was like 16 years old, and from the time I was like 18, really from the time I was 17 till the time I was 40 years old, I pretty much trained like a power lifter. And after 40, I still work out, right? I have a private gym right here on this property. But after 40, just because as you get older, your tendons lose elasticity, I dropped the weight a little bit, increased the volume, but I still work out. Okay, so again, my mentality going into this is knowing that I'm not the smartest person in the world, not the strongest person in the world, so I needed to do everything I could to give myself whatever advantage I could. Okay, so this kind of goes now to planning, okay, because that's the thing I want to talk to you guys. One of the things that I realized early on is I needed to plan things out so I would not make mistakes. And basically, as you go through life, there's different paths that present themselves, and once you start going down a path, right, you can't just jump over to the other path, right? You might be able to branch off and head back in some other direction. But once you go down the path, you have to make decisions along that path. You can't go back in time and redo things. So that's another thing that I realized early on, like when I was in high school, that I needed to make the right decisions. I could not afford to make big mistakes in my life. Okay, so one of the things I did early on, coming out of high school, going into college, is I did consider, hey, how about the military, right? Fun, exciting, play with guns, adventures around the world. What I did is I talked to people that were coming out of the military, not people that were going in or that were in there currently, right? People that had already been out, were coming out, or had already been out for a couple of years, and the vast majority told me that they were not very happy with that decision, that they didn't feel that it gave them a major advantage in life. Okay, so that's one of the things I kind of locked away into my head, and I decided, hey, fine, let's not do that, because I don't want to go down that path, eat up 4 years of my life, and come out and then decide, okay, what am I going to do now? Which is the position I saw a lot of people in at that point. Okay, so what I decided, I decided I'm going to go to college, right? And I ended up going to Brooklyn College, and my mentality was I saw college as kind of like a trade school. I wanted to go in, get the necessary education so I can get out and make money. Okay, and here's the thing: one of the things I realized is, yes, money is not everything, but money frees you up to do the stuff that you like. Okay, so having money is a means to do the things that you want to do, because the problem is that if you take a career path that doesn't make money, I mean, the only thing that you have is that because let's say you enjoy doing social work or something like that, right? And that's because you like helping people or something, right? So if it's something that you're not going to make a lot of money with, you're kind of stuck with that one thing, right? And the thing is that any job that you do every day right, and you don't have the choice of not doing, sooner or later you're going to start hating that job. Okay, so I wanted to put myself in a position where I was making good money and I would have the option of deciding what jobs I wanted to do. So I decided I was going to go study accounting, and I came out of college, and I was on the 5-year program, right? So instead of doing it in 4 years, I did it in 5 years. Came out in actually '94, which would have been my 4th year. I had started working part-time for an accounting firm. Started building up some knowledge. 1995, I graduated, and at that, what I did is after that 1 year, then I left that firm, went somewhere else. I started hopping around. Basically, I started doing job hopping. Every time I moved. By the way, my first job paid me $7 an hour. Okay, so I didn't come out of college like with this degree and said, "Hey, give me a whole ton of money." No, I came out pretty much making close to I don't think $7 was the minimum wage back then, but I was making maybe just a little bit more above that. Okay, so I think a minimum wage back then I think was $5, so I was making $7. Okay, so basically I was probably making the same amount of money that people were making who had not gone to college, right? What the college did is it gave me certain working information, certain knowledge that I could then use to kind of leverage, okay? Because it's not like I came out of college, I had this knowledge, and like, hey, all of a sudden, I know stuff. Realistically, when you go to your first job, right, despite the fact that you have this accounting degree, you really don't know anything, okay? It's not until that you get to that first job that you start learning how that stuff that you learned in college is supposed to be applied, okay? Because there's all sorts of shortcuts and things that are just like completely discarded, and other information that's useful that you're gonna learn, once you start working in the real world. Okay, so I started working, like I said, first job was like $7, worked there for about a year, moved on to the next job, get more money, learn a whole bunch of more stuff. And one of the things I was really good at was realizing where, because here's the thing, when you go to a job, in the first couple of months, you're gonna learn, there's a huge learning curve, right? You learn a lot more stuff when you first go to a job, right? In the first, let's say 3-4 months, then you're gonna learn, let's say, in the 3-4 months after that, and then the longer you're there, the less you're learning. Okay, you are learning new stuff, but you're learning it at a slower rate. And I wanted to be on the fast track. I wanted to move fast, keep moving up. And what I did is I started doing a lot of job hopping. So definitely every year I was at another job. In some cases, every 6 months I was at another job. But every time moving, trying to get more money every time I made this move. And by the time I was I think I was 28 years old, I did settle down with this one company that was doing they were a building supply company and also a construction company. And I stayed with them for 4 years. I did really good. And from that point, after I was there for 4 or 5 years, I was now at a point where I could take all this information that I had learned in the previous years and now apply it to myself so that I could become self-employed. Because here's the thing to understand, which is really important. Nobody is ever going to hire you, okay, so that you can make money, okay? People hire you so that they can make money, okay? So I never went into any job, right? Even though I was looking for a pay raise every time, the money was the secondary benefit. The primary benefit was trying to get knowledge and information, okay, that I could then later on use, right? Use it for myself, use it to advance myself. So, in many cases, I actually turned down jobs where I didn't think, even though maybe they were paying more, I turned down jobs where I didn't think I would learn as much, okay? So I was always constantly looking ahead, trying to figure out, when I was applying for a job or trying to interview for a job, I wasn't looking at so much at that job so much as I was looking at the job after that, right? And 2 jobs after. I was looking at where I wanted to be. So by the time I think I got out of there when I was 31 years old or something. And at this point, I'm starting to, here's the thing, I'm not married, I don't have kids. At this point, I have actively decided, right? I've made the decision that I don't want to be tied down like that, right? I had made the decision, hey, I want to get myself financially established, all right, So before I settled down with a family, right? So I made decisions that would lead me in that direction, right? Because, you know, you know, so so at 31 years old now, I'm starting my own businesses, right? I'm getting involved in different businesses. Obviously my first job was just doing contracting work, so pretty much doing the same thing, but instead of getting a paycheck, I was getting a 1099. All right, so I'm working as a private contractor, right? Doing the same work, and then from there I started branching out, started investing in different businesses, small businesses, right? And then I did that for like another 10 years. And by the time I was 40, basically, you know what? I never took a mortgage from a bank, right? All the property that I live at, right? Different properties I have, I bought them all for cash, okay? Because I had been making wise decisions, right? Not that I was a wise person, but basically I had planned it out. I don't. When I say wise decisions, I mean what I really meant to say. I wasn't making stupid decisions. I wasn't wasting the money. To me, I saw the money as an asset, right? How am I going to use this asset? How am I going to use this asset to make, to get me where I wanted to go? And then by the time I was 40 years old, I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to have some fun. And what I did is I bought this property here, a couple of others. Started getting into shooting. Decided to marry my wife, who I've been dating. At that point, I had been dating her for almost like 7 years. Um, um, and even after I got married at 40, we had our first kid at 43. All right, so now I got 3 kids. I'm 50 years old, and I got a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Okay, which the good thing about the way I planned out my life is that at this point in my life, okay, I can really focus on my kids, right? Because I can, like the kids are my children are the focus of my life. Okay, all the work that I do, right? It's like, I kind of like, you might say I'm semi-retired, right? If I don't want to work, I don't work, or if something comes up more important with my kids, that gets first attention. My priority at this point in my life, right, where I'm 50 years old, is to basically raise my kids so that they can replace me, okay? Not necessarily do my job, right, but replace me in the world, take my place in the world, okay? So that's the mentality that I'm going through. Basically I'm dedicated to my wife, dedicated to my kids. One of the things that I definitely, one of the biggest mistakes I see what people make is like, they don't, at the point where you get married and you have kids, that's really got to be your focus. I see people making the mistake where they start looking outside their family. They got girlfriends on the sides, all that stuff. I have never heard of a situation where that turned into a good ending, okay? That always leads to disappointment. One of the things I have done in my life is, because like I said earlier in the video, I was a fairly intelligent person, but I was not the smartest person in the world. I could not afford to make mistakes in my life, okay? So I don't look to reinvent the wheel, okay? The traditional family structure has been around for like thousands and thousands of years, okay? And there's a reason for it, because it's successful. It's a very successful structure, nowadays where people try to mess with that, you're basically experimenting, and that chances are there's a much better chance that you're going to fail, that something that's new is going to fail, than it's going to succeed. Okay, so when I was growing up back in when I was a kid, because I was born in '72, so back in the early '80s, I was watching TV. I remember there was I remember this very vividly. There was a psychiatrist on TV. I don't even know how I ended up on the channel, but a psychiatrist on TV. He was discussing the high divorce rates, right, and the effect that it will have in the future. All right, so that was back in the '70s. Okay, nowadays, because back when late '70s, early '80s, back then that was like kind of like the strange thing, right? If you had a couple that was breaking up, that was kind of odd, okay? Nowadays, it's like a common thing, right? So at this point, we are like 3 generations into families that have been broken up, right? So it's a lot. So like a lot of the kids that I talk to today, it's like their parents and their grandparents have gone through a divorce, right? So these kids growing up today, and maybe even their great grandparents, right, depending on how young they are, right? Um, so a lot of these kids today, they don't know what a family is supposed to be, right? Because back when I was growing up, right, in the 80s, it might be that maybe their parents had a divorce, but at least their grandparents were still together, and they had something to look at and understand that, hey, this is what, regardless of what I had, what situation, what my parents is like, they could look at their grandparents and they can say, okay, that's what it's supposed to look like. The problem that I see today is that kids, they don't have anything to look at and say, hey, this is what it's supposed to be like, because now they're like 3 generations into divorces. And that's why I think we've got a lot of these problems that we have in society, okay? And a lot of this has to do with the, and not to over politicize this, but what the Democrats has found is that single mothers tend to vote Democrat, right? Because they want that welfare money, right? So, and the Democrats are like, hey, let's give them that welfare money to make them dependent on us. So they're putting policies into place to encourage the breakup of the family because they think that that's going to get them more votes. Okay, so that's now again 3-4 generations into broken up families. Okay, so like I said, I just wanted to put this information out there. Mainly, I wanted to just celebrate my 50th birthday with you guys, but I also wanted to, for some of the new guys watching this, younger guys, not new guys, younger guys, right, watching this, I wanted to kind of lay out my life and what has been successful, what has gotten me to the point where I can do this every day, okay? And that's planning, okay? It wasn't being super smart, okay? It wasn't not making mistakes, because there was plenty of mistakes I made, mistakes that got me fired, right? But here's the thing, that's something that you could come back from, okay? You can, because a lot of times what I would do is I would go to these job interviews and I would oversell myself, right? And in the way that it kind of helped, and it helped in the sense that I oversold myself, sometimes I oversold my experience. But here's the thing, once you get to that job, usually you might be there for, in my case, I was there for a couple of months before, they realized I wasn't so as experienced as I maybe had sold myself to be. But while I was there, I was learning, I was doing and learning the thing that, that I said I was good at. So when I went to the next job, I was very good at it, right? So sometimes I oversold myself, but that ended up being a springboard for the following job. Okay, so again, and I kind of recognized it. I realized I was running a risk when I was doing that, but I was always looking long term, looking where I wanted to be, and really focused on what skills do I want to develop, and what is going to get me to the place I want to be. So I think I mentioned this earlier in the video. Nobody's going to hire you so that you can make money, right? People are hiring you so that they can make money. And myself too, I've had businesses. When I hire people, I don't hire anybody so they can make money. I hire, I give them just enough money so that they'll stay in the job so I can make money, okay? So when people come to me, what they should be trying to get out of me is not just the money, but try to get the knowledge and experience so that later on they can go into business for themselves. Okay, that is the real benefit you get for working for somebody else. That is what I always looked at, what I looked for when I was picking jobs, right? When I was deciding which job I was going to take, and then deciding when I was going to move on. I was always considering, hey, where am I at? Where am I going to be? What's going to get me to that point? And not just focusing on the money that any particular job was going to pay. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that little story over there of my life. It's great to have you here on my channel. Drop some comments below. If you're not a member of the channel, subscribe and hit the bell button so you get notification of new videos I put up. I'll talk to you all soon.